welcome to the third talk by Tate. I'm taking place with Betsy tonight. The talk is about ego, persona, and character. And questions will also time at the end, and if you're not on the mailing list, we have a list in the back. And there's DVDs for sale from the last two talks, or three talks. And yeah, enjoy.
I don't know if I can compete with that view, but I'll try. Good evening. Good evening. Welcome back. This is wonderful to have you here. To be a part of this community is what we're in service to. That's why we're doing these free public lectures, is to find our place in community and be able to speak about it in ways that you might otherwise not get access to unless you come to my office, which is a brave thing to do. And yet, there are times when the wisdom tradition that has been garnered from the years of being behind that blue door often stays behind that blue door. And our work here is to give you an opportunity to talk out loud about what we have learned. So all I am really doing is telling you what you've told me. And yet that story that has crossed 30 years is a story that has many personal details to it. And what I am endeavoring to do is distill what I've learned and give it back to you. So here we are at halftime. We've had a couple of lectures. We started with Now is the Time, talking about the opportunity we have as human beings and the whole grand cycle of evolution to wake up. We're imagining that waking up is as vital to us as was lighting fire or finding arms from fins and coming out of the depths. We then moved into how the shadow is where the light can be found. In our second talk, we talked about living with your shadow. And we based that conversation in the elements of shame. What constitutes our sense of inadequacy is the ground in which the shadow purchases territory. It's impossible to have a shadow without shame. And we talked about moods as the way of accessing your shadow rather than being afraid of them or disgusted with them or, honey, would you get over it? We thought about maybe moods and anxiety and the repetition compulsion and projection, that great act that we all participate in of putting what's in here onto you as ways of accessing the shadow rather than problems to be solved. So tonight we're going to talk about ego, persona, and character, which is a rather dry subject if we approached it academically, but what I would like to do is encourage a certain kind of conversation between us once I lay down, as I have the other talks, a number of assumptions. What we're working with here is the idea that if you can understand the way in which the mind works, then you are free to apply that wisdom to your personal life. So this is like a lesson in the anatomy of the mind. It has a structure. It has an architecture to it. It's not some random, diffuse congregation of elements that are somehow magically in play. There's the mystery, and that will always be a part of this story. But there is a way to talk about how we are human. We've been thinking and working on this now for thousands of years. And so it's with that in mind that I want to present what I consider the three most critical units or elements or characteristics of this thing we call ourselves. So as we have done in the past, I'm going to start out with a dream. Then I'll lay down these assumptions for you. And we'll end with a vision and then have a bit of a discussion. This is pretty. Is it going to burn? Good move. Gideon's light on his feet. I like that. Okay, let me just get arranged here. It's wonderful to see you all here tonight. It's a tribute to all of us that we dedicate a bit of this time and such a glorious night to come together and talk about these things. So here's the dream. This happened on 12/12/06. So I've had 4 dreams after I was asked to do these talks. This is the 3rd dream. The scene is a living room filled with 3 inches deep of green plastic toy soldiers covering 1,900 square feet. Move outside with a close male friend, a man who really personifies, if I can use that term before I explain what it means, the current masculine power dynamics. Successful, intelligent, wealthy, driven, going for it. Close friend. It is he and I that step outside. He points to the sky and says, "Look at all those dark, tumbling clouds rolling in." My character points past the menacing clouds to a sky filled with endless rows of bombers overhead. 12/12/06. We talked that first night when we were talking about a grand vision of what might be shifting in the archetypal nature of the planet's consciousness about another 12/12 date, just to remind you. 12/12/12. This was 12/12/6. I kind of like that. I didn't plan that. I didn't even notice it until a couple of days later. There's a certain genuineness that flows through the universe that we can participate in. But in order to participate in that genuineness, you first have to get over yourself. We have to get over taking ourselves personally. So that's why we're going to talk about ego, persona, and character. 3 different vessels for 3 different journeys. So what is it that we are talking about when I say generous spirit in the universe? What it is that I'm presenting is an independent reality is surging through the universe in some quantum physics type of way that we have words for. And the word we're going to use for that tonight, since this is not a physics lecture, is the word psyche. Psyche is the word I'm going to use for the energy that is moving in the universe. In other words, psyche can't help telling her story. There is an inherent need in the universe to expand and express itself. And I'm suggesting the way that that manifests in our individual life is through telling stories. We have myths that are stories which have passed the test of time. We have dreams, which are your personal hookup to this universal energy I'm talking about that informs the universe. We, as part of it, are informed by our dreams. And there is information and intellect and cognition as part of that story as well. But psyche can't help but tell her story. The constellation of Gaia, the earth we are on, psyche, the Latin word for soul, and Sophia, the word for feminine wisdom, that constellation engenders the storytelling, the myth-making, and the lore-spinning human instinct, creating a context for our experience. Be it women pulling water from the well or men roasting game over an open fire, storytelling is as old as the hills. In other words, there is an innate need to tell the story. There is an innate need to express ourselves. And this need, this expression, this energy, this relationship of Psyche, Sophia, and Gaia has three ways of expressing itself, three vessels: ego, persona, and character. If you don't know the difference between those three, my position is you're in trouble. If you are relating to experience solely through the ego, then you're going to miss your character. If, on the other hand, you are experiencing each other and yourself only through your persona, you're undermining the job of the ego and will be kind of diffuse, airy, spacey. We have to understand the vessels we're in for this journey we are on, and they change over time. So I'm going to express the nature of each of those three elements so you have a bit of a chance in this mystery we call life. So, what is the story we are telling ourselves? No matter what version of the story is being told, the effect and need of telling the story is our interest tonight. It appears as if dreaming, telling stories, and making myths, such as a current one called global economy, that's a good example of a current myth. We believe it. We're participating actively in it. We are willing to do many things for it. Sacrifices are being made because of it. But why can't I buy anything that's not made in China? It's an interesting story. It's a myth. It's taken the planet and it's got our interest. That's what a myth does. So a universal urge to tell the stories and the collective push to tell the story is what archetypes are about. That's what an archetype means. Whenever we find the basic elements of something distilled, that is an archetype. And stories are adventures in finding out what that basic essential story is. So my question to you, just as you sit here for a moment, is what is the story you are believing? Most of the time, that story is unconscious. most of the time you are participating in a story that you don't even know about. That's why our dreams are so weird. Because they're trying to tell you the story you're participating in and you don't get it. Although every night they keep coming. Hello, here's your story. Hello. And we'll talk about ego dreams, persona dreams, and character dreams a little later on in the talk. How we doing? Everybody breathing? It's a little heavy in here. How we doing, Brian?
Very well.
All right. All right, Brian. Breathe, it's okay. Loosen up. I'm going to hit you hard here for another 35, 40 minutes, so don't freeze up now. Don't buckle on me now. That was just, we're on the second point. I've got 8, okay? So far what I've told you is a dream. Remember those bombers? Remember those clouds? Remember those 3-inch deep plastic soldiers? By the way, in the essay that you can access on our blog about this talk, I say that dreams don't mean anything. Eh? What I'm saying here is simply that the stories we tell don't mean anything in particular. Only you know the meaning of these stories. So I told you a dream. I don't know where that took you. I don't know what it means. My job was to dream it, remember it, and tell you. Now it's up to you. Now you'll tell a story about that. Someone in this room will tell that dream to somebody else before the night's done. And that will become a story to somebody else. And that's how it goes. And a good story turns into a fairy tale, and a really good story turns into a myth. And a top flight myth turns into an archetype. And it all starts with a dream. So we're just doing that right here. That's how this happens. Used to be around fires. And here we are, around a fire. Sacrificing daffodils if we're not careful. Okay, psyche and logos combined in this word we have called psychology. This is the next point. In other words, here's this energy. I've just told you a way of how it takes its different shape throughout time in the collective unconscious, through storytelling, through dreaming, through sharing the story. That's got an energy to it. It's got life to it. Psyche is the word for soul. Logos is the word for word. Psychology is soul and word. We're going to use that psychological perspective, the balance of the feminine and the masculine, the image, soul, and the word, logos, to understand ego, character, and persona. The image and the word approach produces a perspective that is relevant to a broad spectrum of human experience. That's all I'm asking you to buy. That's the assumption I'm asking you to buy. Is that a soulful, logical approach to understanding our human existence has application. I'm not asking you to buy anything here. I'm asking you to understand an approach. Sometimes I'll say, you got to understand this. You got to do this. I get all fired up, right? Well, that brings me to a cartoon that I saw in the New Yorker the other day, which I wanted blown up. So you had this guy standing on this mound in caveman times, above everybody else. You know, they're standing there with their clubs, you know, which is, by the way, where the word understanding came from. Ah, see? Everybody else stood under somebody who had an insight. And that's where the word understanding came from. It's a powerful tool. It gets overworked, and we can get zealous, and you can get the guru thing going on, you can get the expert thing going on, and that's not what this is about. Whew. I'm just trying to tell you some secrets, and then I'm going to shut up after next time. I'm just doing this 4 times. So anyway, here's the cartoon. You got this guy standing on this mound. I sure hope my voice doesn't fail me. And you have these guys standing around, all right? And 2 guys are coming up to this guy on the mound with clubs. And one of the guys in the group says, "This is the part of the sermon that I like the best." So, hopefully you don't have to take me out and whip me, but I understand, and some of you have already, and thank you for that. So, balancing the image with the word, the feminine with the masculine, is the task of maturity. A way to experience this balance is to see the force of psyche as the energy, or the crew, if you will, needing a vessel for a journey that sets sail on the ocean of the collective unconscious, weathering the archetypal storms that move through. I kind of like that. Okay? So here we have psyche, this energy of vitality of life that we all have in us, that we have starting in the womb, that we have, according to R.D. Laing and other mythologists and archetypal thinkers, the moment sperm impregnates ovum, the story gets going. That's the most dramatic moment in life. You can never even come close to repeating the kind of impact that had. So it gets going pretty early. Okay? This energy starts rolling very quickly. Insemination. And we're saying that that turns into a psychic energy, an energy of psyche, not psychic energy like I'm channeling somebody, although that's fine. You know, sometimes it feels like that's happening. Maybe somebody will channel somebody right here tonight. That'd be cool. They've got great names. I just can't get where they live. But that's my problem. What's the address? And how come they're always great people? Well, we won't go there. So we have this energy, psyche, and she needs a vessel. And it's either going to be ego, persona, or character. And she's on the seas, all of us, of the collective unconscious, of Gaia's story. Are you getting this on tape? Right on. I think I'll talk like this. I hope you don't mind. That was a great snowstorm. Wasn't Monday crazy, though? I was telling somebody today about the effect of weather that moves through Montana is kind of what I'm talking about. That's why we love it here. Psyche is like Montana weather. And if you were around here Monday, you had an experience of what psyche feels like. The positive, negative ions were just flipping. The barometer was dropping. And we're a barometer. We're a closed system filled with fluid. If you want to remember what energy feels like in psyche, just remember Monday and tell me how you were doing. I about lost it, and I'm a professional. So I don't think I need to belabor the point. Psyche has an energetic, a field, and she needs a vessel to float on the collective unconscious wisdom of the fables, stories, and dreams that are being told every moment, constantly. There are people, millions of people dreaming right now. There are millions of people having insights right now. And then there are storms that move across this collective unconscious. And we call those archetypes. So let's get clear on the three vessels we have available. Because if you're in the tugboat of the ego, going around Cape of Good Hope, you're going to drown. If, though, you have a sleek 40-foot World Cup sailing vessel of character, you're going to make out just fine. If you're, and sometimes they sink too. Yeah, okay, what 60? Okay, 60 feet. One of those sleek guys with a keel that goes way the hell down there, for the balance, right? And if you're in a persona boat, like, I'm in a parade, check me out, aren't I cute? You're with me, okay, I won't go belabor the point. So here's three definitions, here's three ideas about ego, persona, and character that are fresh. I've wrestled with ego for 35 years, trying to figure out what the hell are they talking about when you say ego. We use it all the time, and it's, in my opinion, misused. So I'd like to help you understand what ego means. So as I've done in the past, I'm going to lay out a very condensed definition, and then we'll work it. Ego is the primary neural network of inherited genetic predispositions combined in the womb to yield default settings on our biocomputer's motherboard that determines which software can be loaded and in what sequence, formatted, over the first years of embodiment, period. Eh? Eh? So, first of all, ego is biological, fully unconscious. You are not aware, we are not aware of what its constitution is, and it's finished by the time you're 2. It's the structure of your biological, inherited predisposition, and the term was used neural network. Got the hypothalamus in the brain. Within that hypothalamus, we have a production of neuropeptides and proteins being flushed into the nervous system in the bloodstream. These are the building blocks of reality: neuropeptides, proteins. The first neural network in line in that sequence of gathering that stuff as it comes into the brain is the ego. It's a biological, physiological neural network system that is the platform upon which the persona is built. So the ego has nothing to do with, he's so egotistical. What a big ego. That's persona. And we're going to get there in a minute. You can literally know nothing about your ego. It's unconscious. It's biological. It's the original network that grabs the neuropeptides and decides before you even have a chance the arrangement of what you consider true and real. We don't stand a chance against the ego. It's not something to get over. It's not bad. You can't get over the ego. Maybe there's a few avatars who have. And that's a beautiful thing. And if that's your destiny, you'll get there too. You can't achieve that, remember, you can only attain it. But that's a riddle for another time. The ego is a biological experience that defines through your genetic predisposition, your experience in the womb, and your experience in the first 2 years of life. Check it out. You have kids. Many of you do. When you see a baby checking you out with all that fiery, snapping, clear eyes going on there, the ego is forming. And it's fully unavailable to you as far as what it looks like. I want us to just kind of settle down with that. You can't help what your ego is. You can't make it better. You can't change it. You can't get rid of it. It's not the problem. There are other problems. But the ego is the structure of the way in which your unique constellation allows reality to be perceived. Now, how do you know about how powerful your ego is? Or what the ego's effect on you is? You can know the intensity and effect of the ego by your fear of death. Ego fears death. That's how you know your ego's force. I think this is thrilling information. I think this is very liberating. I trust you will too, and we'll have time to ask questions about that. Okay? In other words, since we all die, we're clear on that. Okay. Good, good. I hate to break that news. Many of us have been terrified by that notion of death. Most of us don't know what to do with that. Religions love that idea. That's where they get a lot of bang for their buck. Yeah. And all death is ego's grip on psyche. It's very cool. You don't know where you came from. You don't know where you were before you were born. You don't know where you're going to be after you're born. You might have some ideas about that. You might have some religious faith about that, and blessings on you. That doesn't interest me. What interests me is the effect of ego is your perception of death. Okay. We'll let that one sit for a while. So, by the way, as in the other talks, you don't have to remember any of this. This is on the blog. You can go home and get this tonight. It's under resources. The essay that's behind all this is on the blog. Go read it. Work it. Each of these outlines of the talk are included in the DVDs. So the persona is the mask that the ego wears. Okay, persona means mask. So the ego has hidden itself behind the persona. Jung says this about the persona. I got to say something here. These guys right here, this is my son and his friends, who all went to school at Northern Arizona University together and Montana State University, and they've all come together to have a wild-ass weekend. Starting today, ending sometime Sunday, and here they are. We have been in very strange situations before together, these four men, and so it's kind of freaky looking at them. So, this is what Carl Jung says about the persona. One could say, with a little exaggeration, that the persona is that which in reality one is not, but which oneself as well as others think he is. One could say, with a little exaggeration, that the persona is that which in reality one is not, but which oneself as well as others think one is. That's a very difficult arrangement. It's a hell of a riddle. Now, because of my own constitution and my background, I have a hell of a persona, you might have noticed, that is not an ego. I've got a strong ego due to some handcrafting by immigrants from Ireland and Sweden, and some pretty good genes. And even though my mom was 45 when she was carrying me in the 40s, we had a pretty good interuterine experience. It was a little nip and tuck there in February of 48, but we made it to May. And it's very close, because the hallmark, some of you might know this, for instance, Down syndrome is one line on the palm. There it is. That's what my ego could have been. That constellation, very, very easily. It didn't happen. She gave birth. She didn't die in birth. We had a good time. She died very young after that. God bless her. But here I am, and I have a big persona. For two reasons, just using me as an example. One is because I was deeply shamed by experts, that Northern Irish Presbyterian minister, and a missionary, a Swedish Baptist missionary, old school, parents born in 1904. So I had a hell of a shaming experience. I remember sitting in the kitchen with my mom, trying to figure this thing about heaven out. It was just really working me, because eternity and damnation were really freaking me out. And I was 10 years old, and it was just like, I got to get an angle on this. This is a long time, and it's filled with suffering. And Dad is convincing 300-400 people a shot 3 times every Sunday morning that it's true. So help me out, Mom. How do you know when you're saved? Just, what do I have to do? I'm trying perfect. How am I doing? Doesn't feel real good. She goes, well, Timmy, you just never know. What? So the persona, rooted in shame, doing what it can. Remember, the nature of the persona is the 6 compensations for shame. In other words, we bought the lie of inadequacy, whether or not my prototype experience has anything to do with yours. It's a archetypal experience. Embodiment equals inadequacy. And we build, as we talked about last time in our shadow talk, a structure to protect us from the experience of feeling inadequate. And that structure has 6 components to it: perfection, withdrawal, rage, blame, contempt, superior position, to hide our shame, our sense of inadequacy, that becomes our persona. And then we forget we did that. Identify with the persona, and then get to experience neurosis. How's that working for you? It's a pretty weird vessel. Pretty flashy, can be. But persona is the mask of the ego, which is unconscious. So let's say that we have this arrangement that we've been suffering from, where on the one hand we've been taught that we have to get over our ego. What a double bind, it's unconscious. And that all you have to do is be yourself. Nice. When I try to do that, it's really about me covering up my inadequacy, because if I ever revealed myself to you, you'd go, whores, you did that? So the mask protects the lie, and we have always a third option. And that third option is called character, and we're going to get there in a minute. But persona is the uninvited guest that took up residence above the ego and has been partying there ever since. Some weird parties, you know, some whips involved, some locked in closets, some joyful, some sad. Determined to be liked, to be normal, and to be attached, the persona needs love, is based in shame, and is convinced it knows the truth. What a combination. Sometimes that conviction that it knows the truth is always doubting yourself. Remember, this is very important. There's called positive and negative inflation. That's what the persona does, is inflates. It's different than grandiosity, which is natural. A peacock doesn't have a personality disorder. It just really loves its feathers. Check me out. It's not neurotic. That's grandiose. Birds, animals all have smells and colors. But we have inflation, which is the shadow of grandiosity, and it has two sides to it, negative and positive. The positive side of it is, wow, he's pretty big for his britches. He thinks a lot of himself. He's real confident. He's, really forceful. He's sure of himself. He's sure of his convictions. He knows the truth about himself. Negative inflation goes, I don't know anything. I'm nobody. Nothing ever works out. I'm always doubting myself. I'm always having trouble. That's inflation in a negative way. We call it the victim. Okay? So that truth of who you are can be a negative inflated belief. It's still inflation. It's still, you're convinced of the truth, even though you might think you're an awful person. So, how do you know your persona? We know our persona by any thoughts we might have about ourselves. Any of the thoughts you have about yourself are persona created. That's what the persona sounds like. Are all those thoughts you had today about yourself. You have about 250,000 every day. You're very busy. You're getting bombarded by about 250,000 bits of stimuli every day, and you're thinking those thoughts and trying to find a place for them. That's the persona, very busy. It's on the stage. What does Shakespeare say about that? The world is a stage and da-da-da-da-da. We're always on stage, always trying to make sense, always trying to arrange. That's the persona. That is not the ego. Okay, a couple more. 3 more points. Character is our calling. And the only thing that hides character from yourself, your divine character, your way of being true to your nature, is that if you are your character, you feel like you're going crazy. What a double bind. Now, in a community, we always go, he's such a character, she's such a character. There's always guys and gals who are characters. We also think they're a little nutty. What a character. A polite way of going, weird. Character, however, is your unique calling. It's your effortless way of being yourself. It's the way that we are without having to try to be anything. Although I get really worked up when I talk to you folks, this is my character. In community, I have been able to survive my persona and birth my character in Bozeman with the help of all of you. That's the job of community, by the way. You can't do it alone, and you can't do it in psychotherapy. You have to do it in community. It's too easy to get away with murder in therapy. You can say anything you want. You can believe anything you want. It's a great thing. And we do, and we work on it hard. But you have to really move from persona into character in community for it to be authentic and stick. It can't be done privately. What you can do is you can leave and you can be yourself anywhere in the world or in any arrangement. But in order for persona to be cracked and character to be revealed, since persona is a social experience, it's best done in community. So character is our unique nature. There is a Platonic myth about this. Plato called it your daemon. Very close to the word demon. Again, it feels like you're going crazy when you're in relationship to your character, because you have to cut through the spell of normal that persona has spun. And whenever you move through that idea you have about yourself, you feel crazy. Or am I going nuts? And therapy that works with this level of reality encourages that experience. We don't want you to adjust to being normal. So character is our daemon, our genius, weakness, our authenticity, our effortless way of being ourselves. Oops. Putter says I was pounding my chest the last time, so we put this up here. And that didn't work either. Based in the Platonic ideal and developed by James Hillman in his book, The Soul's Code, it is a way of seeing ourselves as an archetypal event rather than merely a biological or psychological one. This is real important. Ego is biological, persona is psychological, and character is archetypal. So once you move from taking yourself personally, psychologically, you can start moving into your character's archetypal, and you stop taking life personally. That's liberation. There's lots of stories about that with different names and languages. We know the nature of character through the dreams you can't forget. That's how you know your character. By the dreams you can't forget. One last point. Dreams are the GPS of locating ourselves, the different vessels and different journeys we are taking. That's how you can locate yourself. Your dreams are your personal GPS in orienting yourself in which vessel you are and what journey you're on. Copper dreams, I call them, come first at night. They're the ones that go on forever. They work out your daytime stuff. That's ego. If you're all wrapped up in that level of biological, unconscious reality, you're going to have a lot of those dreams, and they're going to keep repeating. If you're lucky, you'll graduate in the middle of the night, around 3 to 4 p.m., 3 to 4 a.m., to the persona dreams, which are 4-part dreams. We call them silver dreams. They'll start with a scene, then suddenly you're somewhere else, then the scene shifts, and then it ends. They'll always have 4 parts. Silver dreams about your persona. It'll tell you right where you are in your journey with your persona, what kind of ship you're on, what kind of craft you're on. And then, if you stick with this process long enough, you'll graduate to the gold dream, which happens early in the morning, usually an hour before you wake up, after the ego's battled it out in the copper mines. You've crafted your sense of self in the persona in the silver mines. You've reached in there and got a bit of the truth about your persona. Then the gold dreams are the ones that come near the morning when you wake up, and they're a couple lines long, just a scene or two, and you can never forget them. They're just branded. That's telling you about your character. That's the stuff of visions and prophecy. That's what Martin Luther King is saying, I've had a dream. That's that kind of dream. That was a call to his character. I've seen the other side. I've seen the promised land. I can't go with you there. But I've seen where this is going. Gold dream, character, calling, destiny, fate. That's what I'm interested in. So, we're going to have questions here in a second. How we doing? Good? Okay? So, whatever it is that is compelling enough for men and women to stand up and do what I'm doing, in small groups or large groups, whatever that sense of being told something is what character is about. You must say this, you must do this. It's called the calling. I'm called to do this. I've had that voice 4 times. The first lecture we talked about it being Greet the Greeter. That was the voice. That's our blog. That's how you get to this content. Go to greetthegreeter.com. The second one was Square Thy Soul. Right? Voices in the head. Kind of weird. Thank God they're not long conversations. Or telling me to do things. We have other words for that. The third one was one word, and it was the word dross. Now that's a fun word. I had to look it up in the dictionary. I didn't know it when the dreamer told me it. I had a kind of sense about it. But dross is the material that rises to the surface when you're going through the alchemical or smelting process of refining metal. And the principle here is that in alchemy, what he did himself to for the last 20 years of his life was that gold is found in the dross, not up on the mountaintop, not with the Buddha, not with the workshop. The gold, your gold of character, is always found in the dross. So the way I put it was, the gold of character can be found in the dross of the unconscious. And David Byrne, who founded the Talking Heads, has this great song, and it goes something like, "The prettiest, sweetest, most colorful flowers grow around the outhouse." Okay, there we go. That's the lecture. So. Silent friend of many distances, feel how your breath enlarges all of space. Let your presence ring out like a bell into the night. What feeds upon your face grows mighty from the nourishment thus offered. Move through transformation, out and in. What is the deepest loss that you have suffered? If drinking is bitter, change yourself to wine. In this immeasurable darkness, be the power that rounds your senses in their magic ring, the sense of their mysterious encounter. And if the earthly no longer knows your name, whisper to the silent earth, I am flowing. To the flashing water, say, I am.